Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode on the channel. Today, we are in a new studio, as you can probably see, because we're actually making these videos into a podcast. And I got a pretty special video for you today. We are starting a new series where we are actually documenting our process of going through and starting an insurance agency from scratch and scaling it to as big as we possibly can. And we thought it would be really cool to make a YouTube series, a podcast series out of that, documenting the entire process, because I can tell you this idea has been in the works for 4 to 5 months, and we've been working on it for 4 to 5 months. And in just those 4 to 5 months, as we're going to discuss today, that time has literally only been set up and getting things done with legal structure, getting our licenses, getting the entity license, which is everything we're going to talk about today. But I just thought this would be a really cool series to bring you all, because I had a lot of questions as I was going through this process, as well as my business partners who are here with me today, who I'm going to introduce here in a second. But one of the things that I feel like is missing from the insurance world is a presence on YouTube that's really taking you through the ins and outs, the ups and downs of starting a business, scaling a business, the cash flow that goes into it, the business decisions outside of just the sales. There's so many other aspects to it. And I just thought it'd be a really cool series to bring you guys along and document the whole process. So this is one of the very first episodes of this series. I don't know how long it's going to be. I don't know how many episodes are going to be in the series in total, but I can tell you that as long as we're continuing to build this and grow it, we're going to keep bringing you videos and hopefully bring you a lot of cool insights. So along the way, if you guys have any questions, always feel free to drop those in the comments. And through this whole process, we're going to be following what I teach in my main flagship course, which is called Advertising Mastery. So if you guys want more information on that, it's going to be in the link in the description of every single one of these videos. But without further ado, let's get started with this first episode. With my two business partners here, Nick and Carter, we got another business partner that's in California. We're just going to be talking today about what it's taken already to get started with this agency, and just have a casual discussion about what this process has been like and kind of what we look for going forward. So let's just start out. You guys want to introduce yourself? Nick, you want to go first?
Yeah, for sure. My name's Nick. I met Justin actually randomly, just total God thing, at a Bible study. We both showed up one random Wednesday morning. Neither of us had been in a really long time. Just got to talking to him. I was kind of in a transition period at that time, and I didn't really know what I was going to do career-wise. And he just offered to give me advice. Just totally
You were kind of at that point, you were in between different entrepreneurial ventures. You would try quite a few different things. You your dad's got the insurance
business.
Yeah. So, you were kind of in between, and
we both had the Amazon FBA background too.
Right.
Just sat down and talked. He was looking for a salesman at the time, and he started telling me about his business, and I just asked, "Are you looking for somebody to help you do sales?" And he said, "I just started a week or two ago looking for somebody." And it just kind of, those conversations evolved a bit. Mm-hmm. I ended up doing work for him, and then I got into insurance myself. And that kind of brings us.
You got into the group, and then you saw all these insurance agents that were killing it and doing well, and you're like, "Sorry,
I heard about the final expense commissions, and
I'm not gonna work for you anymore. I'm just gonna go start my own business."
Exactly. Yep.
So you pieced out, and then when Nick pieced out, we ended up hiring Carter.
Hey guys, my name's Carter. So similar story to Nick and Justin's. Justin and I met at church, and just kind of became friends kind of along the way. I actually moved to Omaha 2 years ago. I'm from Minnesota, but came here for a job, worked there for 10 or 12 months, and it wasn't for me. It was an accounting job, and it got to be a lot. And so I was actually, just one random day, was reaching out to friends of mine who I knew had businesses, or I knew could potentially give me some sort of work to do. And so I'd reach out to Justin. He's like, "Yeah, I actually was just," who I didn't even really, I knew Nick at the time, but didn't even really put two and two together. He's like, "Yep, I actually just had a guy working for me who's not working for me anymore. And he's done today. So I'm looking to hire somebody soon." And so that was a Thursday. He gave me a job by Saturday, and by Monday I put in my 2 weeks notice at my job. And so that the rest is kind of history there. And then full circle now, that's been about a year. I, in a similar position to Nick, was loving what I'm seeing in the insurance industry, and just this is really cool stuff. And so I decided to get my insurance license, not even really realizing that, I knew these guys were putting in an agency together, but I didn't know the extent of it or a ton of it at the time. And got my insurance license more for fun, to be able to sell some stuff on the side to people that I know, and just be able to help people. That's one of the passions of mine, is just be able to help people with it. And so that kind of turned into, all of a sudden, hey, we're doing this agency and we'd love to bring you on board. And so that's kind of where I got roped in here, which is, it's all kind of crazy how that works. But
yeah. And I just want to clarify that, like, when we say agency, we're not creating some big conglomerate that's just going to be like recruiting people. We're trying to do things differently, because one of the biggest things I see in the insurance world is that typically in every single aspect, it's 5 years behind, and a lot of it is sales mentality driven and sales mentality led, and not a lot of it is backed by like solid business ideas. Not that there's not solid business plans, but we're just trying to do things differently with this whole thing. And so we're not even really going to recruit. Like, there's 4 of us, and that's pretty much how it's going to stay for as long as we possibly can. Maybe we'll bring on an agent or 2 once we are full with capacity of, the plan is, and we're going to discuss this in later episodes, but the plan is to use marketing as, we're going to be like a marketing led agency. We're going to be having people come to us, people book appointments on our calendars. So with that model, we don't really need to recruit, because we're actually going to be looked at as like, people will want to come work for us because we've got the goods, right? People don't have to chase down people. They don't have to knock on doors. They don't have to cold call, all that crap that I hate so much. But yeah, so I just wanted to clarify that a little bit. And then, so Carter is going to be brought in. And like, this is another way that we're so different, because most people that have insurance agencies, if they even have business partners, it's like 2 people that are full-time sellers. And you and me, like, we're probably not even going to sell. Like, I'm doing the marketing. I'm not going to sell at all, ever. And you may eventually, you're somewhat interested in it, but you're just going to be really helping with the back end, a lot of the stuff that like we need assistance with. So our other partner and Nick can full-time sell for us. So I think that's something that a lot of people from the outside looking in don't really see that as an opportunity when it comes to the insurance world. With like other businesses, if you have money, you can invest, you can help out. If you understand marketing, if you understand some sort of skill, you can do that. But I feel like outside looking in, the insurance world isn't like that. And a lot of people think that if they can't sell, they don't have a place in an insurance agency. And that's just not really the case. And we want to prove that. So I know you don't have much of an insurance background, but do you just want to talk a little bit about like your background, like what products you sold, that type of stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So starting out, like a big draw right off the bat, because I wasn't making, as much money as that I could see people were making in the final expense industry. That was a big draw, was just the money part of it. Obviously, I wanted to do right by the clients. I wanted to help people. It wasn't just money focused, but from being able to go like from the income I was at to the income potential I saw, I mean, that was a big driver for me to get into it. So final expense is what I started with, and the agency I started out at, I won't even name them, but they do put a big emphasis on recruiting. And the agents that were my direct uplines weren't even here in Nebraska, so a lot of the training I was getting was over the phone, and they tried to help me out as much as they could. But really, I mean, I was getting training from them on the phone or through YouTube. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So I was learning a lot of the things as I was going. I was going out meeting with people after watching the YouTube video, trying to sell them a policy, never having seen an agent actually do so. So it was definitely tough the first 2, 3, even 4 months, like barely even selling any policies.
So I just want to pause right there. So you saw some people being successful, and then you started a business and it wasn't successful in like the first month.
Right. Yeah. Crazy.
Right. So starting a business is kind of hard. Right?
Yeah. I should have made $20,000 the first month.
Right.
That's what they said it was possible. But yeah.
Not to say that it's not possible, but
Right.
the point is that like starting a business is not all sunshines and roses.
Oh yeah. It takes time.
Right.
It takes a lot of time. The first few months were extremely hard for me. Like, I was anxious about making calls. I was anxious about going out and meeting people. I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. I was questioning myself. I'm like, am I even in the right industry? Like, I don't think I'm cut out for this, hearing all the negative voices in my head. And thankfully, I didn't give up. Thankfully, I didn't quit, because over the past year, things have improved drastically, especially as we start to build this agency together. All the experience, all the training, all the hardships I went through this past year have been setting me up for what we're going to go through with this agency. So
right. And you and I have been talking about this for a year, and I just want to point out that like, had we like rushed into this and started it too early, probably would have crashed and burned because you just didn't have the experience needed. And like, I can even tell like in your confidence, that's the thing about like business is like people think that they can watch YouTube videos and then they're immediately going to be great at it. But the thing is like, you have to actually go out and do stuff.
Definitely.
And then that's how you're going to get better. And so like, even though like I would say the last 2 months of watching you, you've had like exponential growth. And it's just because you finally got enough reps in to actually see some traction and some movement in your business.
Definitely. Yeah. And faith has been huge too. I mean, like I'm a strong believer that when I actually obey God, when I listen to what he tells me and when I like put my full faith in him working in me, I'm going to have so many more results than I ever would have otherwise. Right, and like I had one of the best deal or policies I've sold this past month or two, and
by a lot.
Yeah, by a ton. Like, big annuity, which is going to be huge once that all goes through. We had a few hoops we had to jump through, but that happens with business. We've been kind of, making the adjustments where we had to. That was with another agent, and she pretty much took the lead on that since I haven't done much with annuities. But yeah, just such a blessing, and I don't think I would have gotten that and had him put all that trust in us if there wasn't that faith there.
For sure, man.
I strongly believe.
Yeah, that reminds me of like a verse that I build my business by, which it's a funny way to say it because the verse is that like if God builds it, it's gonna stay up. If you try and build it, then you're constantly having to keep it up.
Right.
Whereas like,
what's the foundation on? Right.
Well, on top of that, we're never going to be able to do anything on our own strength. Like we can only get so far. And that's something that I think I've struggled with a lot of my life is where it's like, I just try to do it. I'm going to do it. I can do it. I can push, like I'm strong enough to do it. Well, you're not. You're not strong enough. You're not going to be. And so.
Right.
Well, and that's like one of the best areas that God will test you when you're starting a business is like you think that you can just go off and watch a ton of YouTube videos and just like do stuff. But God's going to keep you planted in your place till you have the foundation.
It's that pride there kind of. You're like, all right, I'm in this business. Now I'm going to make 10,000. I'm going to be a high roller. Because
if you did right away, you'd probably spend it all. You probably wouldn't value the money.
Yeah, would have gone to my head probably.
Yeah, exactly.
He's humbled me through those hard times. And it's because of that humility and realizing it's not me, but it's like pointing back to him and trusting in him and using his strength. Realizing that is what's allowed me to actually become more successful. Yeah. I notice anytime in life when I start to go my own way and start to think I'm hot stuff and I'm doing so well, that's when God humbles me in some way or another. So
100%.
Yeah. But got into health insurance too. I guess we don't have to dive too much into that, but that was a big shift too. I'd recommend that for new agents. I think you're the one that told me I should look into health insurance maybe starting out. And that was, I think back in November, December last year. That was huge too. And I definitely recommend any agent that's thinking about getting started. You can sell life insurance if you want to, but if you have some kind of supplemental product that you can kind of get your foot in the door with people with, like health insurance or with property casualty, something like that, that's really going to open those doors a lot more for the other products like life insurance that are harder sales. Some people are really good at learning how to sell life insurance right off the bat, but I think it's hard to start out that way.
Yeah. Well, also so many people will just, honestly, I don't know too many people that just get their life license, right? Most people get like life and health, but then they completely neglect health. Or if they go to Medicare, they completely neglect life. Right. And you have a license to sell life, health, annuities, tons of stuff. And if you don't sell those things, you're leaving tons of profit off the table. Your lifetime value of a customer is just minuscule compared to what it could be. And you're just giving that money free to other agents to come by and help your customers. So if you're licensed for it, at least like take a little bit of time and like research what you can sell.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, cool. I think this will be a good time to transition into basically like the steps that we've been going through since we've actually actively like started doing this. And the first one is partnerships. So we clearly are all business partners. For any of you wanting to start your own agency, I will say that doing it without business partners is a lot easier. But that's just for starting it. If you do business partners, it's going to be so much easier to build it. But let's talk about like what that process has been. So I'll just start a little bit and you guys just like chime in where it makes sense. So for me, I've had business partners before. Things didn't go so great with some of them. And so I've had lawyers in my business for a long time. So I knew that if I was going to do a partnership again, I needed to get my actual lawyers to write the operating agreement. And I've got some like tricky situations because of insurance advertising masters, that type of stuff. So we really needed a custom one. But I do recommend for anybody that is going to have partners, get lawyers, get a custom one made. Don't go through LegalZoom. Don't go through all these things. Like they're convenient and they're cheaper. But no matter how much you think that you can like trust your partner, it's just safer and better for everyone to just have the proper legal proceedings in place. And you almost need to treat those initial stages as if you're like going into a marriage and like having a prenup signed. Everybody needs their own lawyer. Everybody needs their own proper expectations, because if proper expectations aren't set, that's where things are gonna like go wrong down the road. So yeah, that honestly took us a long time. And this is the speed of lawyers, but unfortunately, like lawyers are expensive and they're typically not quick. So that probably took us like 3-4 months to come up with like, let's just like talk about that process for like an operating agreement. So the lawyer's probably gonna like give you some ideas, but ultimately you can either find this online or through your lawyer. There's like a sheet we had to go through and like all these different decisions, talk about what was important to us, what our duties are. And then the lawyers just kind of took it from there. But getting all that done probably took like 4 months, 5 months, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess like for people that are wondering out there, like who's a good person to partner with, let's just go through and like talk about what our duties are going to be. So when you two want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I can start. I think Justin kind of highlighted it a little bit earlier, but I'm not much of the, the sales type. I have an interest in getting into selling, but it's not necessarily like the highest priority of mine. And I think where I provide value in this business is like administrative stuff and tasks and keeping things organized. And so, it's not the most glorifying job in the whole world to do paperwork and to
I hate
keep
that
things
work.
organized.
So
right,
having you
like,
to be able to do that is huge.
Exactly. And so when we're able to play off our own strengths, that's where like you just said, how do you decide who to partner with? Well,
right.
Find people who, if I'm really good at something and then not so good at something else, find someone who is good at what I'm not good at. And I think we've done a pretty good job of crafting this team and finding that. So that's kind of where I'm going to fit in here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming from like one of the big 4 accounting firms, you've got that financial experience. So like something that probably goes very unlooked in the insurance agency, who to partner with, that type of stuff. Like when we start making a lot of money, you're able to look at the financial documents, be like, okay, we're spending too much here, lean down, make more profit, spend less money on unuseful stuff. And that's really one of the big,
and that's stuff that like I enjoy, like we just said, like you'd pull your hair out if you had to do that.
Right.
But I enjoy that stuff. So
spreadsheets too, like when we get sales tracking going, all that stuff, you can kill it with that. So
yeah, I'd rather just be talking to clients, like trying to sell them and help them out as best as I can. But then like once it comes to tracking things, once it comes to like putting it in my CRM, it drains me so much. I don't like that stuff.
Yeah. And for me, I don't really like talking to people. So I'd rather just sit behind the computer and be the marketing nerd or whatever you want to call it. But I also feel like I'm good at like understanding business and like leadership and things like that. So when we hire, help with that, talking to carriers, those relationships, things like that, which Ryan is a huge part of as well too. And then, but marketing, like that's, and I just want to like point that out, that like so many people in their mind are probably like, well, I could just hire a marketer. But the thing is, if you don't find the right marketer, which there's a lot of wrong marketers out there, you're probably going to pay a lot in wasted money. And then if you do find a marketer, you're almost better off just having it be internal and having a partner that can do it, especially when we're being like a marketing, advertising led agency. We're like relying on people coming in. So that's my roles.
And I'm so excited too, because starting out in the business, I was cold calling leads. I mean, they opted in for information, but it's still a cold call. And a lot of the people from Final Expense, especially in the Omaha area, they would just get blown up, bombarded by calls, like texts, emails, mail pieces, all that. So a lot of them would curse me out, hang up. Like
That's actually currently happening to me right now.
Yeah.
My phone is like vibrating. I've been getting texts
Email.
and calls like all week. I'm like, what the heck? I don't even know how I got on any of these. But
Right.
that's happens, and that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, having like it's totally different when you actually have the marketing piece to bring in potential clients to you that actually want to talk to you.
Right.
And we use that a bit in my business. You helped me out with that when I was starting out with health insurance, but it's just a totally different conversation when the person gets on the phone and then they're like, "Oh, Nick, oh yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you." It's like you're a celebrity kind of, and it also puts you in a better position to help them because they kind of already see you as that authority figure, which is important because I truly think most people in the industry, and there are those sleazy agents out there that just want to make money and they don't care if they hurt the client or,
They just
take the
don't
cheap
think about it, but
yeah. But most agents, I would say, actually do want to help people. So having that authority already and not feeling like you're actually selling something, but like you're actually helping somebody, that just, it's a totally different mindset shift, and it puts you in a lot better position to really do what's best for you and the client.
Right.
So,
and they can see that coming off in your advertising.
right.
Like, because you can use, right. So like face-to-face is like the number one converting medium, but then the closest way to get to face-to-face is video, and video is very prevalent. Clearly we're using video right now. So it's one of the best ways to sell yourself and use it in marketing. Use it as a tool that can work for you 24/7, 365 to bring people to you, because they can see that empathy that you just displayed right there, that you actually care, through video really well.
Yeah.
But that also brings up a good point too, which we're not going to get into much at all on this video. But in order to have like a marketing-led agency or an advertising-led agency, you actually have to do a little work to find products that people want. You know, you're just trying to like shove policies down people's throat because they need it. That's not going to work for advertising. You need to read books. You need to figure out ways to be different than other people and use that as a benefit for people, because people don't care about like what they need. Unfortunately, like they should, but they don't. They care about like what's in it for them. What are they instantly solving? What problem are you solving? And if you can't even display that to somebody, you're not going to have success with marketing, but you're really not going to have a lot of success with sales. Like you may get lucky, but it's just so much easier when you build the foundation of your business off of figuring out a way to solve problems.
Right.
Which is what we're doing. And that's why it's probably going to be easy to do marketing and advertising for us. So, okay, cool. So once you get the operating agreement written, which you only need to do if you have partners. If you don't have a partner, if you're a sole proprietor, you don't need an operating agreement. You pretty much can just go to you still may want to talk to a lawyer, but you can pretty much just go to the Secretary of State and like register your business. So that was the next point.
And you don't even necessarily need to. It's up to you. But what they at least told me starting out was that unless you hit like $100,000 a year, you can be a sole proprietor. It's not going to make too much of a difference.
True. You don't need to.
Yeah.
I think the only thing with that is liability.
And this isn't tax advice, obviously.
Well, the main point of this podcast is like for people that want to do it differently than just like being an individual agent that's just a salesman.
Okay.
I'm not saying that like I'm not like correcting you or anything. I just wanted to like make that clear for people watching. So even if you are individual and you plan to take this as a serious real business, start it off right from the beginning.
Okay. Yeah.
Get an LLC together and then actually get that license, which is the next thing we're going to talk about. So once you got your operating agreement, you then take that. You can either have your lawyers do this or you can do it yourself, but you go to the state that you live in, their Secretary of State, and you just register yourself as a business there. The biggest obstacle I've ever faced with that is your name. Sometimes like your name is taken, so you have to think of something else, which we didn't have to deal with that at all, which was nice. And then from there, the next step is to get your EIN, which is really easy. You just go to irs.gov or just like Google EIN and then fill out a quick form and you get that. Then once you have your operating agreement and your EIN, you're registered with the state. The next step is licensing. So I'll let you guys talk about this because you did this, but first step was we all obviously needed to get licensed, and then agency license. So you guys want to talk about, I mean, a lot of people probably know how to do that, but hopefully we're getting some viewers that aren't even insurance agents and they want to learn how to start an insurance business. So just start with even like individual licenses.
you want me to? I'll take a
Either way.
individual. I just did mine
Sure.
probably like a couple months ago or whatever, but it actually was really pretty simple. There's a number of ways that you can get study materials, whether it be from somebody, you can buy them, you can go through different places to get them. Highly recommend that just because they're going to set you up to succeed. But I probably studied for 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. And, some people are different, how they study and how they maintain and keep stuff. But yeah, I mean, you go through that pretty simple. You register through the state website. So I just was in Nebraska. I'm like, I'll just start with Nebraska, get my license here in Nebraska and go from there. And so then you go take a test, just like a regular standardized test. And I had a license number in like a week, I think. I went from not hardly knowing what I was doing to studying for my exam to taking the exam to having my license in probably like 6 or 8 weeks. It was really pretty insane. And
I want to talk. What did you get on the test?
Actually, I don't know if I should say that number.
Well, it's funny because like I don't know too many people that like do really good. So to pass the test, you have to get a 70%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's like 150 questions. The first time I took it, I got a 72. So literally passed by like 2%.
Yeah.
And that's like everyone I talk to just passes by like that much. Is that like
I actually got a 72. So and I normally take tests really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And this one I actually went back and I reviewed every question. And there was a couple that when I went back to review, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's wrong. So I'm going to take a better guess, on one that I maybe didn't know, or one I was like, oh crap, I maybe clicked the wrong one. Well, thankfully I did that because I passed by 2%, which is pretty crazy.
What was yours?
I got an 80 or 81,
Nice.
but the guy that recommended I take this, I went through Exam FX, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, make sure you go through, do the practice tests as much as you can, get at least an 80 on those, and then you'll make sure that you pass your test. And they're so similar. So I got an 80 on the practice test and just went and did that on the actual test too.
Yeah. What's funny is like when I first took the test, I got a 72 and then I let my license lapse. And then it was 2019. So like 5 years later, I come in, was getting my license again. And I didn't study at all and I got a 94. So honestly, like I think hanging out in the Facebook groups and just like being around insurance, you just like pick up stuff so well. And once you like
your
know
brain
the
wasn't
lingo,
retaining as much in college.
Yeah, that's also probably very true.
Well, I just think I've learned, I came from zero insurance. I didn't think insurance was fun at all. I never took the time to learn it.
Most people don't.
Right. I was in business and I did taxes for a year. Like that's about as far left field as you can get. And just being around insurance agents every single day, all the time, trying to answer questions, trying to help them with problems, whether it be through our program or even just, something that they ran into along the way that they're like, oh, wait, how do I do this? Like getting licensed in another state. Like now I've never even done that. I'm still only licensed in Nebraska, but I feel like that's the easiest thing to do in the whole world. And like people are like, we just talked to a client this morning. He's like, yeah, I fill out an application, then I go get my license in that state. And then the next day I submit the application. Like, it's an easy process and I haven't had to actually do it for myself, but I've been around it enough to feel like I could go and do it today.
Yeah. And he has done it. So I do want you to talk about that, but that just brings up a good point that there's so many little things when you're starting a business that can derail a business just because people hit roadblocks and it's easy. Like you do it once or twice and you realize how stupid it was to even like stress about it. But there's so many people that hit that roadblock and they're like, I'm just done. So like, I think like one of the biggest things to succeeding at business is just being like, if you decide you're going to start a business, decide and commit and just don't let anything derail you. And just,
you're going to get your teeth kicked in. You just got to be ready for that.
Yeah. 100%. If you have proper expectations, you will be fine and just keep pushing through and realize that the only thing guaranteed is that you are going to have problems and that you need to solve those. So yeah, you want to talk about once you have an individual license, how you get state license?
Definitely. And one other thing I'll say on that too is like no failure is permanent unless you just completely give up. So you're going to have those little failures. That's how you learn.
Right.
Actually, the people that are the most successful probably failed the most oftentimes. So yeah, just keep after it. As far as agency licensing, it's not really too much different than getting
before the agency license.
Oh, okay.
Do a non-resident license.
Non-resident license. So that's pretty similar to getting your resident license. Every state kind of has their own little things. So
you just go through like so when you get your license, you get your
NIPR. Yep.
Right. National Producer Number. And then NIPR.com or org.
I believe it's
One of the
Org,
two.
I think. Yeah, one of the
It's one
two.
of the two.
I should know that. I've been on there quite a bit, but
Yeah, but so nipr.org, you
Yep.
can do a ton of stuff with your licensing, even though it's not going through like state departments. It just does that for you.
yeah,
it's
so
like an aggregator, I guess.
yeah, so for some of them you can go directly through NIPR. Some of them you actually have to go onto the state's like own website for licensing.
Okay.
And they'll have like unique questions. If you're going through NIPR, it's pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are kind of annoying. I can't really remember off the top of my head just the questions they ask, and it's you have to kind of take a little more time just because you haven't gone through it before.
Right.
But it's all pretty straightforward. You just do what the state asks. California, we've heard, takes a little bit longer, and they can be a little bit difficult if you have like a DBA that they don't like. You might have to get another doing business as another name.
Yep.
And then New York apparently is really annoying.
For Georgia, it takes a long time too.
Okay.
But I think it also varies. Like COVID's going on kind of
Uh-huh.
still right now. So everything's like still backed up. But
Yep.
depending on when you're watching this, it could be completely different. California might be the easiest. Most likely not, but it could be.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's how you get like a non-resident license. For anyone that doesn't know, is like if I live in Nebraska, if I want to get a different state, that's a non-resident license because I'm a resident of Nebraska. So the state you live in, that's your resident license. Any other state is called a non-resident license, and it's just pretty easy. You just go through NIPR, just like Nick said, and it's just a few like paperworks or the state website. But okay, so for us, because we're an agency, we had to actually get our agency licensed. So the business, the agency, is its own entity. So how it looks at it, and especially when it comes to contracting, is as if the business is like a fifth person that we're all contracted under. So that's why you have to get it registered. That's why you want to do an LLC. Helps you with all tax purposes. And if you have partners, you want to do it that way. If you don't have partners, you still want to, but for sure if you have partners. So yeah, what's that process?
Yeah, so we were talking about it earlier. It's really not as complicated as you would think. It's almost the same as just getting your own license as an individual. It will ask about designated licensed responsible producers on there. So basically what that is let's say we're all licensed in Nebraska, but we want to sell out in California, right? Well, Ryan right now is the only one in our agency that has that license. So he'd be the designated licensed responsible producer for that agency license. We'd list him as the designated licensed responsible producer.
It's basically like you have to have, if you're going to register the entity, which is thought of as a person, it's not a person. You also have to have an actual human, which I believe has to be a U.S. citizen. I'm not 100% sure on that part, but you actually have to have an actual human that is in the business, also be licensed in that state previously.
Before you get the agency license.
And then they're the designated agent or whatever.
Yeah, license.
And the reason that's important is because if you come into an agency, if you decide to watch this video and you want to go find some partners and you don't want to sell, you don't have to get licensed in every single state. You actually don't even have to get licensed at all, but you do have to have somebody that is licensed, that is going to sell in that state as a human that's part of the business before you can get your agency license in that state. So,
and it's a good thing to plan for too, because if you're going to start doing marketing in California, but nobody's licensed out in California yet, you want to get that process rolling as soon as possible because you need the person to get licensed. And then once their license comes back, which could take a week, 2 weeks, however long it takes, then you have to go and get the agency license and wait on that. So it's good to know those timeframes because, if you're going to start marketing right away, you want to know how long it's going to take to get those licenses.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
I was kind of surprised at how easy it was. I know Nick kind of touched on that already, but just like he and I jumped on a Zoom for probably like 15 minutes one day and we kind of worked on it together because I was not in Omaha at the time. And it was really simple. It's a lot of basic information and getting stuff down, but it's just a process that you have to go and do. And we've talked about barrier to entry a little bit and stuff too, where it's a really simple thing to grind through and
but it would stop a lot of people.
Exactly. But it would, that's where you get a hold up. And if you, like you said earlier, you fight through the hold ups and you get through it, it's really not as hard as you think it might be going into it with no knowledge.
Right. Yeah. And that just makes me think too, like so many people let the future and like the list of things that they need to do to get going stop them. But like if you just take it step by step, it really isn't that hard. You tackle one thing at a time Maybe you have an obstacle come up. There's 4 of us, so we can conquer things together. But
have you ever heard the saying, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah.
Well, one bite at a time.
I don't eat elephants, but
okay.
Donkeys though, sometimes.
Well, you could just do that one bite.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just like, don't get overwhelmed. Chunk everything down and just, again, don't give up. That's going to be like the theme through every video we make at all times, because that's the number one thing that derails all businesses is just people giving up.
Right.
Which comes down to like having a reason to actually start your business and make sure that's a good enough reason to actually start your business. Okay, so we got our EIN. We all had to be licensed, agency license for the company's own entity. Okay, the one thing I do want to go into contracting and like how to choose your company to contracting. I want to touch on that just with the agency license and like how you actually write apps. So once you have your agency license, you're going to get individually contract. I mean, everybody that's going to contract you is probably going to do this a little bit differently. So whoever you go to for your contracts is going to be able to help you with this. But the one thing we found is that even talking to some large IMOs, they're not even really familiar with the process that we just talked to you about today. So that's why we made this video, because there wasn't anything out there like talking about this. Unfortunately, we just kind of had to figure this out. And then we were getting such mixed information. Some of the places that were going to contract for us, they were talking about, well, we all had to be licensed, and that just didn't make any sense, because I knew that you could invest in a business and not be an insurance agent, and you could still somehow own part of the business. Like, I knew that was possible. And then someone said that like you have to, like, insurance carriers won't pay businesses, they only pay people. So then we have to write all 4 of us on every single policy. That would mean that we all have to get licensed in every single state. So just none of it was adding up. None of it was making sense. So first thing is, like, hopefully this is giving you a good idea of how to do it, because this is how we're doing it. And don't take everything we're saying as like perfectly applies to you, or that it's 100% true, because we could be making mistakes. We're human, but we don't think we are. We've talked to a lot of people. We've already made the mistakes. So hopefully now we're giving you the information of how to do this. Say all that to say, when you go to get contracted, you may have to do some of the explaining to the person that's contracting you, from what I've already just talked about, what we've been talking about today. But how it should be done, and like I said, this can be different, is that you'll get a personal contract from the IMO with the carrier that you want to go to, or carriers, but then your agency also gets contracted. And then I believe to be 100% compliant on every app you write, you have to put the writing number of the agency and your own writing number, but then you would just assign commissions to the agency, so it goes in the business bank account.
I think it's just the individual, no?
No.
Okay.
There's people that do try and just do the agency license only.
Yeah. I thought it was individual.
No, you do individual only, you'll get paid personally.
I thought if we assign all the personal commissions to the agency.
That's what I'm saying. So you put both.
Okay.
You put both on there, and then you assign commissions to the agency.
Okay.
See, we don't still even know what we're
Gotcha.
talking
Yeah. Yes.
but I'm pretty sure that
I'll take your word
it.
for it over
I believe that, and ask whoever you're, the carrier, they're going to probably know. But you would put your agency's writing numbers, your own personal writing numbers, and then if there's another agent that worked with you, you could put theirs. But then you would want to assign commission to the agency so that the money goes into the business bank account. Oh, that's another thing. You also have to get a business bank account.
Yeah. There is an option, I know, when any individual gets contracted with a company, you can actually, when you're going through the contracting process, there's an option to assign commissions to someone. So I think in the actual contracting process is when you do put that you want to assign all commissions to the agency.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll double check on that. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. And like I said, that could also be different depending on like carriers and things like that.
Sure.
So that is the one place we still have a little bit of ambiguity. But once we start writing a crap ton of business, we'll tell you how to do it. one step we missed is once you have your operating agreement and EIN, you can then go get a business bank account, which we definitely recommend you do. Especially if you have partners. Even if you don't have partners, I'd suggest keeping and having a business bank account. Keep it all separate from, you can probably talk about this, Mr. Taxman. Keep it all separate and then utilize credit cards as long as you're smart to get like points and things like that too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of perks to having a business and a business bank account. And so that's like you were saying earlier, to register a LLC and that stuff. I think that's a huge step. Business credit cards is a big step, but I think the biggest thing, especially if you're going in on your own, is keeping it separate because it's so easy to funnel stuff through. It's like, oh, it's all going to my checking account. It's fine. Well, now I've got a checking account with 10 grand in it, and I might have to use some of that to pay taxes, and I might have end of the month bills for my business, let alone my own, personal things that I'm spending money on. And all of a sudden you don't have any money in your bank account. You're like, what the heck? I just made $8,000 in my business. Where did that all go?
Not to mention that if you don't keep things separately, you do what's called piercing the corporate veil. So one of the big benefits of owning a business and having an LLC is that you separate your assets from yourself. So best example I can give you is like if you get in a car accident and somebody sues you, if you pierce the corporate veil by like putting things on different bank accounts, all that stuff, basically showing that there's no actual separation between your business and yourself, they could sue you for everything your business owns as well too.
Exactly. And that's why, that's one of the benefits of an LLC versus a sole proprietorship is if I'm a sole proprietorship and I get sued, you can take everything that I own, whether it be business related or not.
Yeah.
But suddenly I have an LLC. If my business is broke and you're going to sue me, you're not getting much.
Right.
And so that's the benefit. And then from just a pure tax perspective, a lot of businesses don't, especially small businesses, don't pay quarterly estimates. So you're going to get a tax bill next tax time next year. You're going to get a tax bill, and it might be $20,000. I was watching a video one time, and this lady was telling her story, and she went from like 300,000 in 1 year, jumped up to like 20 million. Like she made a ton of money, but didn't steward it properly. Didn't have the necessary things in place to make her estimates. She got this tax bill. She had to sell her boat in order to pay her taxes.
Dang.
And it's just like, people don't get that, but because people just inherently don't know a lot about taxes.
Right.
So you're going to get a tax bill next year.
Right.
You got to make sure you're saved properly for that. And one of the biggest steps for that is making sure it's separate from your personal spending and your personal bank.
Yeah. And that brings up a good point too. Like have a bookkeeper, or if you want to bookkeep yourself, although like once you're making money, that's probably not a task that you should be doing, because I pay somebody $100 a month to do the books for my business. And so that would just be a lot of wasted time for me. But make sure that you are actually doing that. Like you get a QuickBooks account or a Xero account or something like that. That's super important. Okay. So I think that covers all like the logistical things. The next thing I want to talk about, and then we will wrap this one up because it's getting kind of long, is who do you get your contracting through and like what to look for. So if you have anything to say, feel free to chime in. You've got experience. I'll let you start, and then I'll give kind of my thoughts on that.
Okay. Are we talking about IMOs or companies?
IMOs.
IMOs.
Yeah. Well, you could also go direct to carrier. So.
Yeah. Well, so I would say a big thing with IMOs that you want to find out about is like, is there an emphasis on recruiting? Is that a big thing? If you want to recruit people, if you want to build like a big downline, which maybe you do, then that's obviously important to you, and you want to look at that and you want to find a good company that does that really well. But you also want to find out what they're doing as far as like training and sales support and all those things, because if they're only trying to recruit you and they just have their whole system built on like recruiting, you're never really going to be able to be effective and help your clients to the best of your ability. And you're just never going to get to where you could be if you actually had somebody to really mentor you and show you how to do sales. I've been moving. I have too many contracts.
Your Frankenstein contract.
Yeah. I have like 5 IMOs I work with, something like that. And the reason, I went to different IMOs for different contracts. Like some of them didn't have contracts with certain health insurance companies. I also got contracted like with an agency down in Texas. And then I was like, well, I'd rather have somebody up here in Nebraska to help me out. And so I've kind of moved a lot of contracts around. I did find a guy. We actually met him down at business conference in Memphis, Tennessee. His name's Tony. Tony Cosgrove. I'll give you a shout out right now. But he's been helping me a ton. He's a local guy. He lives in Omaha too. For me, that's really important, actually being able to go out and see what he does, see how the client meetings go. Spent like a whole day with him. He's going to actually come out because I'm staying in York this week, doing a lot of sales in small town Nebraska. He's coming out tomorrow. We're going to basically go back to back, switching off like sales presentations. So having that hands-on sales support for me is really important. Might not be for everyone else, but that's really something to consider if you don't know what you're doing starting out. I think training wise, like if you go captive, you're going to get a lot more training as far as sales go. And that's a better place for a lot of people to start. I think if I would have been kind of in my training process for longer, I think captive would have been the way to start out and then go independent from there. I'm happy I went independent though and kind of learned things on my own and found Tony to help me out because it got me to where I am today. And now we're forming this agency. So I'm right. I don't have to worry about kind of starting all over. I can still build my individual business until this gets going.
Yeah. And that brings up a lot of good points. The first thing is if you're new to insurance, captive is where you contract with an insurance carrier. Like the insurance carrier is what people call like the insurance company. So there's a lot of insurance companies out there. You've probably heard of many of them. Some of them are captive, so they have their own agents where you can only sell their products. You can't sell other products. Otherwise, you can be independent, and then you would go sometimes direct to carrier, direct to the insurance company, but for the most part, you would go through an IMO or some sort of upline that's going to provide you some sort of support, and that's really what we're talking about right here. So I just wanted to kind of go with some of my thoughts, and then I'm sure that'll spark some thoughts for you. So I think the most important thing is to sit down and realize what are you lacking. So if you are brand new, if you don't know how to sell, if you need sales experience, product knowledge, all that stuff, that's probably going to be one of the most important things. Mm-hmm. If you're like us and you've created a team to really hit all of those buckets and holes, I got marketing, you got business, you've got some sales. Ryan's really good at sales, really good at product knowledge. So we don't really need anything. And with that being the case, we don't want marketing help from an IMO. We don't want advertising help from an IMO because I'm going to be doing all that. I build our websites. I build our funnels. I know how to do all the tech stuff. We don't need to get a cut and pay for somebody to make a logo for us or make a flyer for us or make a website for us because we're going to be doing that ourselves. On the other hand, we don't want to take a cut and pay because we don't know how to sell, because at this point we have partners that are going to be doing all the selling. They're comfortable selling. We don't want to take a cut and pay for that. Some of the other things like back-end support. So there's other IMOs that will, give you a little bit lower commissions because they're going to check up on your policies that are out there that aren't closed. They're going to check, do they need like medical records? They're just going to monitor that stuff. Well, that's some of the stuff that Carter and Nick are going to be taking care of as well. So we don't really need any assistance there either. We've purposely done that because really what we need is someone that's going to align with our values and really give us what we feel like we deserve, which at this point is just the highest contract because we're pretty confident that we're going to make a lot of money and have a successful business. So that's like one of the most important things to us. The other thing that I would say is very important is choose what products you want to start out with first. And some people will disagree with this, some people will agree, but I would say that IMOs, FMOs, NMOs, they're all going to have their strengths, and you don't need to, as an independent, have everything through one IMO. Some people will disagree with me, and that's fine. But if you want to have a Medicare line, find an upline, a mentor, or just a straight up IMO that focuses on Medicare, can get you the best contracts. If you want to do big whole life or IULs, cash value policies, go find somebody that specializes in that. If you want to do annuities, go find somebody that specializes in that. If you want to do final expense and mortgage protection, go find somebody that specializes in that. All of these different things are going to have their own IMOs that you can get contracts from. And then on top of that, figure out what's most important to you. So if you do need mentorship, if you do need sales, it's not always about the company, the IMO, FMO, NMO at the top. It's going to be who you're going to directly to get support from. So in addition to a company, all these different companies have different people. So we can't just sit here, and we're not going to compare IMOs, NMOs. There's tons of other channels out there that do that. The Insurance Panel, they're good friends of mine. They do that. Go watch them. But so we're not going to do that. But well, like Nick said, when he was starting, he wanted some mentorship. So there can be companies out there that are good, but then they have not so good people that you would get contracted under. And then there can be companies out there that have bad reputations, but they have really good people that you can be mentored by. So it's not one size fits all. There's so many things to think about. And I would just start by sitting down, actually writing out like what your priorities are and what products you want to start out with.
Going off that too, when you're starting out, you don't have to think necessarily, okay, the product I choose, the niche I choose, like I better find the right one right away because that's it. Like that's the one I'm going with. You can always pivot. Like I started with final expense, mortgage protection a little bit, switched over to health insurance, kind of switched it into Medicare, which actually brought back like the final expense experience I had. A lot of the skills that you learn are transferable to different areas in insurance, but you don't have to, it doesn't have to be such a big deal choosing the right niche right off the bat. Obviously, you want to choose one. You want to just choose one and commit to it, because when you do that, you're going to be able to specialize in it better. You're going to be able to learn the products better. You're going to be able to help your clients better. You get so much more of a benefit out of like specializing in one area. And also when it comes to marketing, people want to work with somebody that does specialize in one area. They want to see that you're doing marketing specifically to them, and they want to feel like when you're talking about who you help, that person is them, like to a T, everything you're saying about them. And I mean, you already talk about that in your course a lot. So a lot of that's from that. But with carriers too, you don't, like if you're going into selling whole life policies and you want to really help people build cash value, you might only need 4 or 5 carriers. You don't need 20, 30 carriers.
1 or 2 to start out with.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And also a lot of agents think like, and I thought the same way. I was like, I only have like 3, 4 carriers. I don't feel like this is enough. But oftentimes too, like if you do have an IMO, you can call, you can ask them for sales advice. Maybe you'll come across a client where you don't have a contract yet. You can talk to that client, then pick up the contract when you need it. You don't need everything right off the bat.
Right.
So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there about contracting too.
For sure.
Yep.
Awesome, guys. Well, I feel like this has been a long one, but hopefully you guys all got a lot of good information. Really just want to thank you all for watching, staying in tune with this, and we plan to bring you a lot of really good info, just like really peeling back the layers of everything we're doing and documenting the whole process, like I said. So if you enjoy that, if you want to see more of these videos, please like this video. Leave a comment in the comment section of what types of videos that you want to see as we document, right? Because we can document the whole thing, but if we do these podcasts, if we do talks, tell us like what you have questions about. That's going to really help us. And then subscribe. That helps us grow the channel, helps us, get better sound like this, better video like this, better quality for you guys, so that it'll help you learn, help you grow. But yeah, thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you on the next one.